Before we do that, it's all over the place. I'm gonna walk through this. So your class project. So what we are going to do, we are going to look at stressors, how you cope with stress, and then an overall measure of well-being. So I took what you did for me a couple weeks ago, where you said, here's some things that stress me, here's how I cope with that. I took those and then took some pre-established scales and created a survey out of it. Past classes, we've used the same survey and we've gone out and collected data from lots of people. And we had lots of things in the survey, and you would kind of take your own section, like Colton would do this part and Tessa would do this part and Grace would do this part. Ours is going to be a little bit different. Okay, we're only going to collect data from in here. Everybody is going to use that same data set with one exception. Okay. So we're going to collect the same data multiple time points. What design is that? Collecting data multiple, longitudinal, okay? We're gonna collect data multiple time points. So your final project is gonna have basically two parts to it. One, you're gonna look at data as a whole. So on average, this is how people cope with stress, and this is how that relates to their overall well-being. And the second part of that is you're gonna look at your data, okay? You personally, you're like, oh, like that week I did this and I felt less stressed, or that week I did this and I felt more stressed. Okay. So that's going to be the difference. So get used to this survey. We're going to take it every week. Okay. Before we do it, I'm going to walk you through it and give you a chance to add anything you want. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. All right. First issue. Okay. In general, best practice is to not ask for identifying information. Okay. The reason we're going to do that is because I'm going to give you your individual data so you can analyze your own data. I don't have a good way around this. I will tell you when I do this, like when I do my own research and I'm collecting and I need to identify people, so we do longitudinal stuff, and so we need to see how an individual person tracked over time. We ask a series of questions that generates a code. So it's just like, what's your middle initial? What's the first initial of your dad's name? How many siblings do you have? Like it's like 5 questions and it generates a unique code, and that way I can track them. But I need to be able to give you your data. So I need to know who you are. So if you're really uncomfortable with me knowing your answers to these questions,
leave the classroom.
I don't know, lie, like, I know, I don't know. Okay, so I am asking for your name or student ID. I will say, if you are uncomfortable with me with me knowing your answers to these questions, give your ID, because like I can look that up, and I will have to look it up at some point to give you your data. But it's not gonna be, I'm not gonna be like, oh, Savannah's ID, let me go look at her data. Like, I'll just be like, oh, okay.
She's really stressed out.
Yeah. So if you really don't want me knowing, you can enter your student ID. Okay, oh, it's gonna make me do that. All right, so the first measurement is about different stressors. So it's gonna ask, in the past week, how often have you felt overwhelmed by school, felt overwhelmed by work, had difficulty meeting deadlines, conflicts with families, difficulty managing finances, felt isolated or lonely, had conflicts with friends or significant others, or worried about your internship?
Almost
Where?
always.
Are we supposed to be answering her?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm gonna walk through it. Is there anything on here that you would like to, or not on here, sorry, that you would like to add? I think I captured, I mean, some of you had individual things, right? So I can't do it for everybody, but I think this captured most things that were recurring. Okay. The next is about how you cope with stress. So I took this both from your answers and from an existing stress coping scale. It's going to ask, in the past week, how often have you made a plan of action to tackle an issue, tried to change the way you think about situations, reminded yourself of the positive, asked others for advice, talked to someone, asked for help. There's two talk to someone, so it's a little bit different. Shared your emotions, reached out to a friend or family member. There's a typo there, I'll fix it. Let your feelings out by crying or yelling, or the negative one, blamed yourself. Any like super important like coping mechanisms that you want to make sure we capture? Or is that a decent list? This is from the World Health Organization. This is a measure of overall well-being. So in the past week, how often have you felt cheerful and in good spirits, felt calm and relaxed, felt active and vigorous, so vigorous, full of energy, woke up feeling fresh and rested, felt that your daily life is filled with things that interest you. Okay. So we're going to see what your stressors are, how you're coping with those, and if those things impact your overall well-being. And then I always like to grab some like, because student services likes this data, so always give it to them some motivation to graduate items. And then some things about some demographics, race, ethnicity, gender, year in school. So this is going to be your final project, analyzing these data. So let's make, I mean, I can't make everybody 100% happy, but speak now. If it's like, you know what, I really want to know that we're not collecting. Right. You're also going to get tired of this because we do it once a week. There's a QR code. I highly recommend doing it from your computer. If you have your computer out, it's just easier. You can go to tinyurl.com/402FA24. Great question. If one of these just doesn't apply to you, like if you don't have a job, just skip that one. It's okay to leave it blank. Or actually, in that case, so we lost that one. I would say that it's not at all. You don't have job stress. Show, try to figure out to be more time. Or if you moved on to Instagram. If a few of you are finishing, you can just ignore me for a second if that's you. I will say the next time and times we do this, it'll actually be a little shorter. Because I don't have to ask demographics every time because they don't change. Okay, so it'll be a little shorter. Before we proceed, crap, I'm all over the place today, gang, sorry. Joe, you want to tell us about the Spark event today?
Yeah, so most of you know, I'm one of the executive leaders for Spark, the Sports Parks and Rec Club. I'm in charge of the professional development. And we are doing a series for professional development. We're having our second event tonight. It's online. We're hosting 3 city and 1 outgoing county administrator from Phoenix, La Paz, and Apache Junction tonight. If you want some CFEs, get some career advice, some insights into local governance, you should come. It's only an hour long from 7 to 8 tonight. You'll also be able to ask about, a career path they took, see how they progressed up to county and city administrators. And as the series suggests, some professional development. So it's an awesome opportunity. Even if you aren't a member, you can get the code or the link to just jump on the chat on the Zoom tonight and watch that.
Thanks, Joe. I'll send an announcement with the Zoom link. It's 7 o'clock tonight, and I always forget, but yeah, 2 CFEs. So if you need to ratchet up the CFEs every 2 matters. Yeah.
So if we need CFP hours and go to like different club meetings
Mhm.
for this club, does that count? And we
Yep.
just need your signature?
Yep.
Okay, and it just counts for 1 hour.
It depends, like I tend to round, so like we'll give 2 for this, even though it's an hour event.
Okay, I need some, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so all those get CFEs, and if you're really panicking about CFEs, come talk to me. There are other ways to get them. And I can help you out with that. One of our city administrators, Inger Erickson, who's deputy city manager for City of Phoenix, used to be their Parks and Rec director, so she can kind of speak to both worlds. So I think that'll be good. All right. One more thing before we get to content. App 2, which was due a couple weeks ago, and I kicked it back, and so I want to talk about that for a minute. So what App 2 is, or the purpose of App 2 is to write the methods section for your final project. So the methods section tells us how you collected data. So we sent out a survey, we use these measurements, these are the questions that were asked, this is the scale they were measured at. So it's fairly templated and a bit fill in the blank. The reason I am bringing this up for discussion is that was a really useful idea when you were doing different elements of the project. Everybody's doing the same thing. You're gonna have your own individual data, so you have a different analysis, but everybody's should look exactly the same. So we have two options, I think two options. You can tell me if there's a third option. Okay. Option number one, we just throw out that assignment. Okay. Now, before you're all like, yes, of course, why wouldn't I say that? Remember, that means that every other assignment is a little bit heavier weighted. Okay, not much, but it does impact things. So this would be one other chance to earn points. Option two, is that becomes one of those assignments, I know you're a little bit tired of them, like, make up your own, actually, we probably build off your app one where you did a survey. So you'd write a hypothetical, like pretend method section. Okay. So you do it, but it becomes, instead of being the method section for your final project, it becomes a pretend method section. I don't know why that needs air quoted, but I'm doing it. So that's option two. It doesn't make sense to have you write the method section for your final project because everybody's gonna be the same and I'm just gonna give it to you. I guess a third option would be, I could plug in a different assignment. I don't know what it might be, but I could think about it. Or here's the third option. I could make it the pretend methods and make it optional. So the way that would work, it's not the same as bonus points, right? If you did it, those points would count towards your final grade. If you didn't, they wouldn't. So if you do the assignment, I don't remember how many points are in this class, but let's say it's 1,000. So you do the assignment, you have 1,000 points. You don't do that assignment, you have 950 or whatever it is. So it's gonna just change the percentages that everything's worth. The downside to that for you is it's gonna make Canvas a little wonky. Like, I don't care, like I'll do it on the back end, but it might make, if you choose not to do that assignment, your Canvas grade may not be accurate. So I don't know if that's where, I'm happy to do that, but I don't know if it's worth it. Yeah. Any other options? Yes, Savannah.
Here I go. What about? My brain's turning right now. What about we like hopped on a Zoom and did it together? Actually, I'd rather just do it by myself. Never mind. Then it's like, what's the point? Like, we've been doing, I don't know.
Megan?
So what would be the difference between option 3 and extra credit?
So extra credit, let's say an assignment is worth 20 extra credit points. If you get 2 points, that helps you. If you bomb the assignment, we get 2 points, it helps you.
Yeah.
Okay, if it's worth 20 not extra credit points, and you get 2 points, that's gonna hurt your grade, because you got 10%.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking,
So if you do well on it, it's gonna help you. If you do poorly, it's gonna hurt you.
yeah,
Whereas extra credit helps you no matter what.
yeah, I'm just thinking if you're planning on throwing it out entirely.
There still are the 3 bonus assignments. There is lots of bonus points available in this class. You do not need more bonus points.
And maybe we just get rid of it.
Yeah, Candace.
How much like more weighted would the other assignments be if you did get rid of these?
I can play with that. Give me just a second to get there.
Like a percentage?
Okay, this is your current situation. So exam 1 was 13%, exam 2, 13%, final project 16%. If we got rid of that.
I might as well be.
Your exams go from being weighted 13% to 14%. Your final project goes from being weighted 16% to being 17%. So it's, your other everything basically goes up a percentage point. Grace?
The only question I have is, would we do anything to test our knowledge on methods otherwise? Cause I don't wanna not do anything to test it and then do methods for the
I mean,
final project. And then bomb it.
I'll,
And, cause that's worth, so even without that, it's worth more than the exam, and my grade went down like 5%.
what's worth more than the exam? Oh, the final
I didn't do
project?
that bad, everyone, I just.
The final project is worth more than the exam?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm like, if my grade, if I got a B plus in the exam and went from an A to a B plus, I just wanna make sure that I'm not gonna mess up methods on the final project, cause I don't know how to do it.
You're not gonna mess it on the final project, because I'm gonna give it to you.
Oh, yeah, that's what
I'm
you're
just gonna
saying.
give it to you. We'll talk about it, so hopefully you understand it, but I'm gonna give you, here's the text.
Oh, then I don't know.
I will say, in general, although you all did so well in the exam, you're making this a difficult statement, but in general, final project grades are higher than exam grades,
Okay.
usually. But again, you all did very well in the exam, so I feel less confident saying that than I normally do. Okay, shall we vote?
Yes, but I
Let me make sure. All right, A is to keep the assignment, well, it's quasi keep the assignment, it becomes a pretend method section. I mean, I'm gonna air quote it if we do this on the assignment, just gonna make me laugh. B is we delete it entirely. If you're on the fence, I mean, it's gonna make my life a little easier if we just delete it entirely, but, you know.
Okay, let's just delete that.
All right, you wanna vote.
Wanna make your life easier.
A keep, but optional, B delete.
I know, I want your life to be easier, especially with everything that's going on at home with your wife. How is she doing? Good?
A little better, yeah, making progress, thank you.
She watching a lot of.
I was, Savannah, that was very nice of you, and I was being cynical. It's like, you want my life to be easier because I'm in a better mood and then I got a better teacher, I'm a better grader. Yeah, you just, in general, it's to your benefit that I'm in a better mood.
What's the verdict? Make your life easier?
All right, closing in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's enough of you. I'll keep it up there. I'll change it, keep it up there if you want to do it.
Okay.
So I need to update the requirements, so I'm gonna keep it, it's optional. Just remember that optional is not the same thing as bonus. If you bomb it, if you do it and bomb it, it's gonna hurt you. If you do it and do well, it's gonna help you.
Everyone's gonna be sitting outside of your office to make sure they're carried
It's just such small points, but, all right, I know you all. I know.
Now I feel like obligated to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do now.
I-
Just want to make your life easier.
There are way bigger things in life to stress about than this. Way bigger things in life to stress about this. Do it, don't do it, I don't care. Well, I'll update, I'm gonna update the instructions, we'll go over it next class, and then you can decide whether you want to do it or not.
Okay.
I'm gonna leave it there. All right, one, I said this already now, apparently I lied to you. One more thing before we get to content. Because I would say this in a class, but I would forget, because I'm just completely disjointed today. Pay attention to your announcements, most likely Tuesday's class. I will be here per normal. My recommendation is that you come here. However, I'm gonna give you the option to participate via Zoom. And the reason for that, probably Tuesday and Thursday, I need to double check. The reason for that is most of the class, you're gonna be on your computer. Okay, and I'm gonna be walking you through how to do the analysis. My experience is people who come to the classroom learn it better because it's just easier to ask questions and me to walk around. But if you're like, you know what, I drive from Queen Creek for one class, you're giving me a Zoom option, I'm staying home. Like, I totally get that. Okay. So I would say I recommend coming to class. I understand if you choose not to. I'll put on Canvas the
Yeah, for this my second class will be different.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely. It just changes my day so much when when I went to the gym on Tuesday after the exam, like, I'm a whole new person compared to me sitting in this place for 4 hours of the time. Yeah, that's just, like, today I was gonna drive home and then like Japanese drive me to class, but then I was like, okay, no, I have a lot of stuff to do, I'll stay here, I'll get my stuff done. Yeah.
All right, we really are gonna do some content today, but it's simple content, simple content. All right, so for the next several classes, we're gonna talk about analysis. The first type, which is one you already know how to do, we're just gonna put some language to it, is univariate. Okay, uni, one, like unicycle, okay, variate, variable. So these are statistics on one variable. Statistics on one variable. We often refer to these as descriptives. And that's because they're just describing the situation. They're not explaining anything, they're just describing the situation. Your average grade was 89. There 40% of you are tourism majors, like whatever. Okay, they're just describing the situation. For our purposes, the descriptives we're going to use are frequency counts, which we usually put in terms of percentages. Okay. Someone give me an example of a nominal variable.
Hair color.
Hair color. All right. Can I do frequency counts with hair color?
No.
Wait,
No?
what? Yeah.
Can I say 5 of you are blonde, 2
Yeah,
of you
you
are
can.
brunette?
Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
Sorry, I thought it was like already supposed to be like,
You don't need to apologize.
just thinking out loud.
Ordinal data. Okay, so let's say I asked for your ages, but I put it in ranges. So younger than 18, 19 to 20, 21 to 22, 23 and above. Okay, so you're going to be in each of those categories. Can I do a frequency count with that? And I say X% of you are in this category, X% in this category. Yep. Interval data. So let's say I ask, rate your agreement with the following statement. Eric is really disjointed today. Strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. Interval data. Okay. Can I do a frequency count with that? Can I say X% strongly agreed, X% agreed? Yep, some heads nodding. Yep. So frequency counts are nice because we can do it with everything. We can do it with everything. The next bucket are what we call the measures of central tendency. Central tendency. So what's in the middle? What generally describes the room? Okay. So the first one, the one you know, but again, we have to be weird with vocabulary, is mean. Mean is the technical term. The rest of the world calls this average. You can use whatever you want. Okay, mean or average. Okay. Let's start with interval data. Okay. Your exam scores are interval data. Can I take an average exam score?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Let's say we'll go back to my rate your agreement. Eric is disjointed today. Strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. Can I take an average score? I hear a yes. Hey, you want to explain?
Honestly, I just kind of said yes.
Okay, well, you have 50% chance, so.
Um.
All right, so, you are correct. Here is why, and this is why we, call those integral. When we get data like this, we're gonna convert it to numbers. So we're gonna say strongly agree is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because we've set its interval, so the distance is the same. So now, knowing that information, can I calculate an average score?
Yes.
Yep. Nominal data, hair color. Can I calculate an average score?
No.
No, right? I can't say average, your average hair color is. Ordinal data, so I have your ages, but in ranges, can I calculate an average score? So remember, the key is here in ranges. So, 18 to 19, 19 to 20, 21 to 22, 23 and above.
Well, you could calculate the average range, right? So then yes,
How? How am I gonna calculate average range?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, you're coming to this conclusion, but do we understand why not?
No.
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 Is it because of the ranges, like,
Yeah, it's because the ranges, right?
you don't know if.
I don't know if you're in this bucket, I don't know if you're 18 or 19, I don't know if you're 20 or 21.
You don't know if you're 23.
I don't know if you're
24,
23 or 45, yeah, exactly. Okay, I know you're in that range, but I don't know exactly where you're at, I don't know the distance. Median, the number in the middle, right? Okay, so a little math refresher, apologies, you won't have to do it. So if I were to take your exam scores, and I would line them up. 50, 55, 60, 72, I'm making these up, obviously, okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so I take the number in the middle, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that, in my case, it's 72, so it's the number in the middle, okay, the number in the middle. So I just showed you interval data, so we can do that. Okay. Nominal data, can I do nominal data? Can I take the hair color in the middle? No. And by the way, if you're getting confused, I'll give you a trick. Ordinal is always the same as nominal. Okay. Mode, the most frequently occurring. We don't use this a lot. Okay. Here, can't actually do all three. Okay. We're not going to talk about it in detail because we don't use it a lot. Okay, measures of efficiency. The other general category of univariate statistic we have are measures of dispersion, how much things are dispersed, how much they are spread apart. Measures of spread, measures of spread. We're gonna do two, range and standard deviation. Okay, erasing this. Take a picture again. You will get that table on your exam. Like I will give it to you. Okay. Range. Range is another one we don't use a lot, but it is the lowest to the highest. So your exam scores range from a 10, and no one really got a 10, I'm just giving you a point, 10 to 100. Okay. Frequently, when we have, and this is one of the reasons we don't use range a lot, like when we have Likert scales, strong leaders, strong leaders, your range is 1 to 5. We don't give people a choice to answer outside of that. Okay, so that's range. Standard deviation is trickier, okay? But standard deviation, I suggest to you, is one of the most underused but useful statistics we have. I'm going to give you the technical definition. And then, sorry, again, this is a problem with, no, I want to. So how spread out the data are. So the technical definition of standard deviation, which is super confusing, but some of you like definitions, okay? It is the average distance from the mean, or the average distance from the average, or the mean distance from the mean, which makes your brain hurt a little bit, right? Makes your brain hurt a little bit. Okay. What it is conceptually telling us is how spread out our data are. So let me back up a second. Let's say I ask people to rate your satisfaction with your exam score on a 7-point scale. 7 being you were very satisfied, 1 being you weren't satisfied at all. Okay. And I was curious to look at tourism majors versus everybody else. So let's say tourism majors is data set 1, everybody else is data set 2. And these were the results I got. Okay. So I can tell you that the average score of both of those data sets is 3.6. The median score of both of those data sets is 3. And the range of both those data sets is 1 to 7. Now, you take a look. Sorry, it's a lot of numbers. Do those look the same to you?
No.
Okay, I see some no. What's your impression? Why do you see the difference, Savannah?
Data set 2 has a lot more 1s and 7s that just like jump out at you.
Yep. You say the same thing, Joe? Yeah. Right. So data set 2 has 1s and 7s. Data set 2 is a lot of 3s and 4s. So again, this is about satisfaction. I would say this group, we had a lot of people who were very unsatisfied and a lot of people who were very satisfied. Okay. This group, everybody's like, it's fine. It's fine. When I start thinking about interpretation, I interpret this very differently. I should interpret this very differently. Like what a lot of people will do, and you see this all the time, they calculate the average score, right? They're like average score 3.6, 3.6. This group is the same as this group. You'll see this all the time. Okay. But you can tell me once you look at it, you're like, no, they're not. They're actually quite different. This group, people either really happy or really miserable. This group, everybody's like, it's fine. So as a manager, you're going to interpret that data really differently. If I'm managing a hotel and all my customers are like, it's fine. Versus some of my customers are like, this is the best place ever. And some of them are like, this is the worst place ever. Like how I interpret that is very different. And probably in this case, what I want to know is what makes the people who said 7 different from the people who said 1. Like what's driving that? What else is going on here? Which I can't tell from that data set. Okay. But this is why standard deviation is important, because standard deviation is going to put a number around what you could visually see. You could visually see it, but you're usually not staring at the entire data set. You usually got lots of data. Okay, so it is the average distance from the average. In the next 2 slides, I'm gonna walk you through. Don't panic. I'm gonna walk you through the math for calculating standard deviation. You will never have to do it, okay? The reason I walk you through the math is for me, like, when I first learned standard deviation, and because it's the average from the average, like, that doesn't make any sense. Okay. When someone like showed me how to calculate it, I was like, oh, now that makes sense. So it's like looking under the hood. So for me, that helped it make sense. If you're like, nope, that's just gonna confuse the hell out of me, just like ignore me for a few minutes. Okay. Otherwise, walk through it. All right, here are two data sets that I just showed you. So the first thing we would do is calculate the average score for each data set. I already told you that was 3.6. Okay, they're exactly the same. The average score of each data set. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take each individual answer and I'm gonna subtract the average for the whole set from it. Okay, so this person said 3, so 3 minus 3.62, 4 minus 3.62, 3 minus 3.62. Okay, so every person I subtract the average for the group. Okay, now I've got this new number, which is the distance that each person is away from the mean. Okay, so I told you that standard deviation is the average distance from the average. So you might say, well, I took the distance from the average, so now I just average that. Except you have a math problem here, okay? The nature of averages, if I were to sum these numbers up, anybody know what I'd get? If I were to add all these up,
The mean.
what number would I get? If I were the difference of each item from the mean, what number would I get if I summed these up?
The total of the mean.
What, it's a real number, like,
You want a physical?
I want a physical number. As
Oh.
opposed to imaginary number, which are things, which is another weird thing I never understood. Zero.
Mhm.
It's the nature of average. I get 0. Okay, they cancel each other out.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
It's too long.
so here I do a little math trick. Okay, and I square them. So I multiply each of those by themselves. What squaring does is it removes the negatives. Okay, so now we have all positive numbers. So now if I add them, I don't get 0. Okay. Now, I take this number, the squared number, and I take the average of that. This is what we call variance. Okay. So now I've got the average of these differences squared. So now I want to get it back to my original unit of analysis. So now I take the square root. And that's my standard deviation.
I learned all this last year.
That's my standard deviation.
Like 5 years ago.
So,
I learned this like last semester.
so now my number tells me what you intuitively saw. Okay, the data set 2 is more spread out than data set 1. Now, inevitably someone says, well, what's a big standard deviation and what's a small standard deviation? I'm like, oh, it depends, right? It depends on how big your scale is. So usually when thinking about standard deviation, it's useful to look at it in comparison to another group. Okay. So my conclusion here is this group with the bigger standard deviation, their opinions were more spread out than this group. There was more variety of answers in this group than this group. This group, people felt mostly the same. This group, people felt a little all over the place, even though their average came out the same. Their opinion was more spread out than this group. So again, I kind of took notes. This tells us something that I think, that we often overlook. When we just look at the average, we go, oh, on average. Okay. But the standard deviation tells us that even though the average is the same, those groups are pretty different. Okay. One had a lot of different opinions. One, everybody felt about the same. So when we have high standard deviations, we're going to kind of figure out why, what's driving that. Okay. What are the people who said 7? What makes them different from the people who said 1? Okay. Again, you'll never have to do that math, but it helps me. So Maybe it helped you. Maybe you hate me for going over that. I don't know. What questions do you have? Oh, standard deviation has to have interval data. Standard deviation has to have interval data. So that first part of the semester, when I kept saying, trust me, this measurement level is gonna matter. This is where it starts to matter. And we'll see it even more when we get into bi and multivariates and multiple statistics. So that table I put on the board, and you'll start to see that when we get into multivariable statistics. It'll be like, you have one ordinal variable and one nominal variable. Here's the statistic you run. Okay, so we'll go over that, but then I will tell you, I'll give you that table on the exam. But all you have to do is be able to do that very well. All right. What questions do you have, folks? Sorry, I've been here and here and here and here today.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'm not good at Excel.
Okay, you will be by the time you get to this.
Yeah, I
class.
was just asking, like, you'll teach us like everything.
So here's, I'm glad you brought that up, Savannah. So, here's how this is gonna work. So we are gonna go over the Excel. We'll actually use Google Sheets. Excel's a little easier, but not everybody has access, so we'll use Google Sheets. We'll walk through how to do it in class. Okay. On your application assignment, which is doing the stuff, okay, I have videos that walk you through all of it. Click here, click here, click here, click here. Okay. The videos are nice because you can pause, you can rewind, you can go back.
Yeah.
And here's the other reality, and I've been saying this for years, and now my reality is starting to come true. Like, soon Excel has been with us for 30 years, probably. Okay, in the next 5 years, I predict to be obsolete because you're going to go into ChatGPT or whatever the next iteration of ChatGPT is, dump your data in and it says calculate the average. So I want you to learn Excel because it's the tool we have now. Also, I think it's good. Sometimes just learning how to learn is good for you. But I predict in the next 5 years, it's going to be obsolete because AI will do it for us.
So we will use Excel.
We will. Yeah.
I recommend watching a YouTube video.
I recommend watching my YouTube videos, actually.
Yeah. My roommate tried to teach me.
Yeah. All right, folks, I appreciate your patience with me today. And again, kudos on your exam. And if you're not feeling that, that's fine too. I will see you next week. I'll put on Canvas the Zoom link if you choose to join us that way.
I'm going straight to my whole away from me.
Sounds good. Well.
We will have class, as far as I know. There'll be a Zoom option.
Yeah, no, okay.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
did you?
If that works for you. If not,
Stuff you went over on Zoom Monday, did you?
it's always important.
No, it wasn't no.
Oh, ask a question.
About Excel.
Oh,
But I
okay.
did take something like a good little note from the bottom of my. Post grad.
That's not
Was
really
there
something
anything
I can
important
prep,
that someone
so,
asked that like would
like,
determine how you do the exam?
gradually. I don't really.
Yeah.
Cross-section.
Any.
But it's like literally exactly the same.
Yeah, they told us that.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Like just learning
Actually, hold on one second. Because this is not a private conversation,
Oh.
but some